Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another episode of the Think Clinical Podcast. My name is Hamza. It's great to be here. So today we are going to be talking about some really important stuff that people, again, I get a lot of questions on things that could or things I should be looking into or things I should be talking about. And one of the things that really comes up a lot is I'm a startup. I've been working on my company for a while. I've seen a lot of growth. I'm ready to scale, but how do I know if I'm really ready to scale? When do I know how to scale, or when do I optimize what I have? Different things. What do I need to consider when I'm scaling? So there are so many different questions just around scaling alone, and so it's always about, do I scale or do I optimize? Like, that's the big question, right? And today I wanted to spend this time going through some of the key things that you need to pay attention to when considering scaling your business. You need to, these are very clear objective metrics. You do not need to look into everything or have everything dialed in. You have to be able to clearly look at the metrics or these things that I'm going to discuss with you, and determine first of all whether I'm ready to scale, or I'm ready to, I should be optimizing my business or optimizing my processes at this time. So in the next couple of minutes, that's all I'm going to spend my time doing. So this is going to be very clear. It's going to be short, hopefully. But let's look at this overall. When you have a business and you're growing and you see a lot of success, you're seeing a lot of cash flow, you're seeing revenue, you are beginning to get to a point where you feel like you have to expand your business beyond what is currently doing. You have to scale it. There are things, especially in healthcare, that you need to really look at. But objectively, in business on its own, you need to look at these very important metrics. One, when do you scale? How do you know you're ready to scale? So let's look at those first. So it's going to be a question of when to scale or when to optimize. When do you know that this is the time to scale? And when do you know that this is the time for me to actually optimize? I'm not ready yet, right? One, you know when to scale when you have consistent profitability for 6 consecutive months or plus. That's a good sign, right? When you have repeatable processes documented and standardized. So it means that for a hospital, for instance, from your pre-arrival phase for a patient, from the way your websites look, from the way your websites are laid out, from what the tools available for patients to schedule appointments, to when they actually get to your practice, how the check-in process is, what are the requirements of a proper check-in process to improve that patient experience, to the time they are waiting, how are they being updated, what are the standards of care when they go to a clinical team, how much time are they getting from the clinical team, do they feel rushed through appointments, is there a standard of care clinically, when they are checking out, is there a standard of things or items that they need to complete? If you've standardized all your processes and you've documented every single one of them, and you know and you are clear and you've run these processes so many times through a very well-oiled workflow system, then you know you are ready to scale. Thirdly, when you have your management systems that can handle increased complexity, it means that you have the infrastructure that can help you manage the complexity of the level of scaling you want to go to. You know you are well positioned to scale. The fourth thing is, and sometimes this is where the misconception is, when the market demand exceeds your current capacity, then you feel the need to scale. It is a good sign for you to scale, but it's not one of the strongest indicators for you to scale. If you do not have your processes together, you do not have your management systems together, you do not have your workflow, you do not have your documented processes, then it's going to be difficult for you to add any other component to what you already have if you don't have a well-oiled machine. The last one is that if you're going to scale, then you have access to capital. You have to be sure you have access to the capital that help you with that scaling, and I'll tell you why in a few sentences in a bit. Now, if you however see these signs, It means that you probably need to take a break, optimize first before you start going. One, when you have inconsistent financial performance, so in the 6 months you've seen 1 or 2 months that are horrible, 1 month that is extremely good, another month that is just okay, then you're not ready. You don't need to. If you make that commitment, you're going to implode as a company. 2, when you have high staff turnover, it means that your processes are not well buttoned up, and even your internal framework is not suitable to retain staff. You need to optimize. Otherwise, you're going to drive the company into a lot of operational chaos, which would again destroy the company before it becomes as strong as it needs to be. When you have unresolved quality or compliance issues, that's not a time to scale, that's a time to optimize. And the 4th thing is that when the market uncertainty or there are competitive threats, that's not a time to scale. So now I know you are clear on when or what you should be seeing when you're ready to scale and what you shouldn't. Now, there are always capital requirements, especially in healthcare. So let's assume you wanted to scale, and I just want to run through these quickly. You have to be sure that you have capital that will cover your regulatory compliance cost. Now, this is about 15 to 20% higher in healthcare business expansion than any other business, right? You have to make sure you have capital in place for credentialing and licensing, because this is like going to be a 6 to 12 month lead time that will require you to invest upfront. Okay, you also need to make sure you have capital for technology infrastructure, because when you start growing, you have to start putting your systems on a more robust framework, and then you have to make sure you are training your staff. Those are costs that you're going to incur before you even start seeing the profit of whatever your scaling is. Now, you can fund all your scaling projects in so many different ways. Some will self-fund. If they have the money, they are profitable, they make good money, they'll self-fund it. Traditional bank lending is also an option for you to fund. We have healthcare focused investors who are willing to put more money into your business, especially if it's profitable and they know they can get their ROI on these. And if you look at strategic partnerships, these are really, really good for you to be able to scale. Now, understanding when to scale and when not, you have to make sure that you are placing yourself in a very, very strategic position, and making sure that you're not exposing your company too much to some form of a distraction. You have to be ready to put the company in a place where you have the framework to be able to support all the challenges that come with scaling your company. Now, when you look at the financial side of things, you have to make sure when you are going to grow or when you're scaling, it will create unique cash flow pressures. Your credentialing delays before revenue generation is going to be a constraint on your cash flow. The upfront equipment and technology investments that you have to do is going to be a strain on your cash flow. The staff hiring and training costs before even productivity is going to be a strain on your cash flow. And just marketing investment to establish market presence is going to be a strain on your cash flow. So these are things that you need to pay attention to. So it's not enough to identify when you are ready to scale or whether or not you're ready to scale. It's very important to also acknowledge the fact that they come with scaling when you do. But most importantly, being able to differentiate clearly between when to scale and when to optimize is the foundation of what would drive everything else. Because once you have those in place, or you are clear on where you are good to go. So always remember, you are ready to scale when you have consistent profitability for at least 6 months. That's a good sign. When you have repeated processes, now this is the most important one for me. When you have repeated processes that are documented and standardized, because you cannot scale when you do not have well-oiled processes in place. Thirdly, when your management systems can handle the increased complexity, so it means you have the framework to be able to manage whatever you're adding on, good time to scale. When market demand exceeds current capacity, good time to scale. Access to capital is important, and if you have that access and you have all these other things in place, then you know you're ready to scale. But without these, If you're having consistent financial performance, please pause and optimize. If you have high staff turnover or operational chaos, pause and optimize. If you have unresolved quality issues, pause and optimize. If you have market uncertainty or just competitive threats, pause and optimize. This has been another episode of the Think Clinical podcast. My name is Hamza. It's always great to be here. Have a wonderful weekend and a week ahead of you. I will see you in our next episode.